yes.
Okay.
If you don't have a copy of that, then you should.
How much is it?
It's $7.
Okay.
Okay. Shall we start? I think it's a little bit too loud, from what I think. Teeny bit. Or maybe I can. No, it's not adjustable from here.
Someone was playing at the volume, so.
Oh, yeah. That sounds about right. Yeah, that's fine.
The bass was too high.
Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So what we will do, I think, is just chant together the dhyana shlokas, as well as the first 5 of the Dakshinamurti Stotram, and then at the end of the class we will do the last 5. This is how we will do it. So if you don't know the dhyana shlokas, then kindly just listen. And I thought that we had already put the chants on the web page, but if not, then I will do so for you to practice. Om Mauna Vyakhya Prakatita Parabrahma Tattvam Yuvanam Varshishtante Vasat Rishiganai Avrita Brahmanishtai Acharyendram Karakalita Chenmadramanandarupam Swatma Ramam Uditavadanam Dakshinamurti Mide Vatavitapi Samipe Bhumi Bhage Nishannam Sakalamuni Jananam Jnanadataram Arhat Tribhuvana Gurumisham Dakshinamurti Devam Janana Marana Dukkha Cheda Daksham Namami Chitram Vadataror Mule Vriddha Shishya Gurur Yuva Gurostu Maunam Vyakhyanam Shishyatu Chinna Samshaya Nidhaye Sarva Vidyanam Vishaje Bhavaroginam Gurave Sarva Lokanam Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Namah Pranavarthaya Shuddha Jnanaikamurtaye Nirmalaya Prashantaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Vishwam Darpanadishyamana Nagari Tulyam Nijantargatam Pasyanatmani Mayaya Bhavivo Bhutam Yatha Nidraya Yat Sakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye Swatmanamevatvayam Tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye Namahidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Bijasyantarivāṅkuro jagadidam prāṅnirvikalpam punaha maya kalpita desha kala kalana vaichitya chitrikritam maya viva vijrambhayatyapi maha yogi vayasvechaya Tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Yasyaiva Sphuranam Sadatmakam असत्कल्पार्थकं भासते साक्षात् तत्त्वमसीति वेदवचसा यो बोधयत्याश्रितान् यत् साक्षात्करणात् भवेन्न पुनरावृत्तिर्भवाम्भो निधौ तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नानाच्छिद्रघटोत्तरस्थितमहादीपप्रभाभास्वरं ज्ञानं यस्य तु चक्षुरादिकर्णद्वारा बहिस्पन्दते जानामीति तमेव भान्तम् अनुभात्येतत्समस्तं जगत् तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये देहं प्राणमपीन्द्रियानपि चलां बुद्धिं च शून्यं विदुः स्त्रीबालान्धजडोपमास्त्वामिति भ्रान्ताभृशं वादिनः मायाशक्तिविलासकल्पितमहाव्यामोहसंहारिणे तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये. Okay. So we begin the study of the first verse today. So one thing to see is that this is a rather advanced book. So advanced in the sense that the 10 verses themselves give you a very high level idea of what is being taught with very little detail, and therefore it takes the skill of the Sureshwaracharya's Manasa Ullasa to discuss the details that are implicit in the book. And so the Manasa Ullasa is a very important addition to the explanation of the book. But if you just look at the 10 verses, all I'm saying is that be patient with yourself. It is not easy to see what is being presented. It's a very high level and a very advanced exposition. That's all I'm saying. That if you some reason you feel that you don't understand it, that's okay, because it just takes a while to get it. So I think it'll be really wonderful for us to review the Manasa Ullasa. And the Manasa Ullasa, as I have been saying, I would like to summarize it in a way which is conceptually easy for us to understand. So instead of going through each one of the verse, because there are so many verses of it, as we tried to do the first time, we'll summarize it, and I'll make sure that really all the important concepts are brought out in the next 3 or 4 classes and so on. So with that, we will begin the first verse. So my question to you is, were you all able to see the translation that I made which is a direct translation of Swami Maheshananji's explanation? And this is what I'm going to try to do, because that's the vision that I'm going to follow. And so I want to make sure that the translation is accurate to how he would present it. Of course, he writes it in Hindi, and all I have to do is to translate it in English. So my question to you is, were you all able to get that from the web? Anybody that was not able to get it from the web? Oh, good. Wonderful. You all have that. So let's do this. Let us pronounce it one more time, just the first verse, Then we will begin to analyze it. And the other thing I would say is that we'll probably spend more time on the verse itself than we did the first time I taught it. Obviously, this is only referring to the people who are already here. Because I think we kind of enunciated it, but straight away went into the explanation through Manasa Ullasa. This time, I think we need to spend some more time with the verse itself, and which is what I plan to do today. So let's see how it goes. We'll see that. So please, let's just do it together one more time. The first verse. Om Vishvam Darpana Dichamana Nagari Tulyam Nijantargatam Pashyannatmani Mayaya Bhairivod Bhutam Yatha Nidraya Yat Sakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye Swatmanamevadvayam Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. So in this verse, this is really the most important verse, which summarizes the whole vision of Vedanta. So this is the first verse, which is the important verse for all the 10 verses. So in this verse, it's really divided into two parts. So one is the first two lines, first one, and the second one is the last two lines. The first two lines talk about the vision. What is it that we have to see? And the second part of it discusses the result and also how we should see it. So this is brought out in much more detail in the subsequent verses of the Manasa Ullasa, which we will study later. But I think we will summarize that today itself. So up to now, what we had seen was, before this verse began, we saw Manasa Ullasa number 1 through 7, which I've summarized for you. And this is what I'm going to do. Hopefully by time available, I'll summarize the key points of the Manasa Ullasa. So just to give you an idea, verses number 4 to 7 of the Manasa Ullasa talks about the qualities of an eligible student. By the way, before I continue, so if you don't have it, I think we talked about it earlier on. So this is an English translation of the Manasa Ullasa from Aladi Shastri. So this is the translation of the Aladi Shastri book, and it gives you for each of the Manasa Ullasa the English translation. So it doesn't have the Devanagari. And for those of you that, it doesn't matter for those of you, but you may want to get the Devanagari from the internet. That's easy to get. So, but the English translation is what you should see for each one of them. And this book is only $7. And so if you don't have it, please you can just take it right after the class. We have about 7 or 8 copies of this. And I think some of you already have the Aladi Shastri. So this is the original book from India, and this has only the English translation of it. So it's pretty complete, so you can kindly get that from this. So in this, verses 4 through 7 discusses the qualities of a student. So this is the ideal. So just to give you an idea about setting up the explanation of verse 1, what kind of questions are being answered by verse number 1. What kind of questions should appear in the form of a good student, really a sharp student? So I gave you a hint of that, and verse number 4 through 7, if you want to review it, I'll always give you that option. Kindly review it. Gives you the full scope of what the questioner is asking. And I gave you a little hint of that in the last class, which was this. It says that when you see an object, this is the question by the student. When you see an object, the object has two primary qualities. It has some secondary qualities like the shape, the color and so on, the form, etc. Namarupa. It has it, no question about that. But the intrinsic qualities that the object has are two in nature. One is that it exists. It is. We don't think about it. Of course, when we see an object, of course it is there. But the questioner now has to say, my question is, he says, that when I see an object and it is, and also it is known, because the isness of the object and the knowingness of the object are really two aspects of the same thing. Because you cannot know an object unless it is. And if the object is, then it is also knowable. So these are the two things of it. Now the questioner asks, I wonder whether the isness of the object belongs to the object or not. So if it belongs to the object, what it means is that when the object is gone, it has taken its isness with it. And in fact, the knowingness also with it, because if I hide it, you cannot know the object. And therefore, I don't care whether the object is or not, it is no longer relevant to me. So the isness and the knowingness of the object is taken away by the object. Or is the knowingness and the isness of the object simply borrowed by the object, and it is prevalent elsewhere? Ordinary people like ourselves, we will never have a question like this. What difference does it make? It makes a big difference. So for example, the example given is that if you have a shining light on an object, you see an object and you see light on it, does the light belong to the object? Clearly not. This much we can tell, that there is a general light in the room, and whichever object happens to be in the room simply reflects the light. This one is clear to us. Now the questioner's very sophisticated question is the same thing happening to the isness of the object? Just like the light certainly shines on the object, and in fact the way the objects are lighted up is their ability to reflect the light. If they don't reflect the light, it becomes black. If they reflect the light perfectly, then it's white, etc., etc. So it's the variability of the reflectability of the object. But really the basic aspect is a common light which has nothing to do with the object. Questioner is saying, is the same thing true about the isness? That never appears to us. That is not a sign. It turns out, later on we will see, that isness also does not belong to the object. Anyway, so this is one of the many questions that prompt the enunciation of verse number 1. So if you want to review it, you can just see the type of questions there are in verse number 4 to 7 in the Manasa Ullasa. Now let us come to the verse itself. So for doing that, what Swami Maheshananji has done, which many other people do, but I think he does an exceptional job of that, is to convert the verse into a prose form. Because our mind really, poetry is good for enjoyment, but for understanding, the way we talk and listen and read is through prose. So this is what is called sa-anvaya artha. Anvaya means reordering. And so a artha means the meaning. The meaning of reordered words is called sanvaya artha. And so this is a direct translation from Swamiji's sanvaya artha, and it goes like this. Yaha. So all the words are taken from the verse itself. There's nothing which is outside the verse. So for instance, in the Vishwam, Darpana, etc., the beginning of the third line is Yaha. So Yaha. So if you can just read along with me. So Yaha means that. And that refers to Paramatma. And so the very little difference between Paramatma and Ishvara. Very little difference. It's one is the content, the other one is with the Maya Shakti. That's all. So Paramatma, so Yaha means that Paramatma, which by the Maya Shakti, Mayaya Nidraya Iva, just like the powerful effect of sleep, through the Maya Shakti. So I'll just do the whole translation, all the coverage of all the words, and then we will go individually to each of the words and look at the explanation of it. So that Paramatma, which like the powerful effect of sleep through Maya, makes things that are inside me, Atmani Nijantargatam, appear as though they are outside of me. And what kind of things are outside of me? Vishwam. This is also a very interesting and important word. Vishwam refers to two things. Vishwam refers to my outside experiences, the world. The worldly experience is called Vishwam. All kinds of experiences. Sounds, forms, ideas, emotions, everything is called Vishwam. The second thing that Vishwam refers to, and both are important, we need to keep both of them in mind, is the Jiva Atma. Because those of you that have studied the very basics of Vedanta, so Vishwa refers to the waker. Taijasa refers to the sleeper, etc. Vishwa refers to, is the name of, a common name of all beings in their waking state is called Vishwam. So, Vishwam can also refer to me as it appears to me. My self-estimation. Who am I? Not only the world outside, but also me as a person. So the same thing is done for outside things, for both of them. So, Atmani Nijantargatam Vishwam Bahihi Udbhutam. It makes it appear outside of me. And then an example is given, which is Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam. So there it means the city scene seen in a mirror. So supposing you have an outside mirror, usually mirrors are not outside, but supposing you put a mirror on the outside wall, you will see the reflection of the entire city. You won't hear the sound coming reflected from it, but you will see all the forms. You will see people, you'll see cars, you'll see cows on the street being, people trying to avoid that. All those kinds of things you will see. Buildings, roads, everything you will see on the mirror. And later on we will see it is very much like the dream. Because in a dream, as we have been studying in the Mandukya Karika, you do not have any reality in the dream. Why not? Because there's no space for the dream inside of you. There's no time for the dream inside of you. This is something similar to that. There's no space inside a mirror for the car to be traveling. But it travels, it moves, you can see it exactly. So this is the example given in here. So, Udbhutam yatha drishyamana nagari tulyam. Okay. So this is the summary of the first two lines. Yaha nidraya iva mayaya atmani nijantargatam vishwam bahihi udbhutam yatha darpana dishyamana nagari tulyam. So this is all given in the first two lines. Then comes the second part of the verse, which begins with Pashyan prabodha samaye advayam eva swatmanam sakshat kurute tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Shri Dakshinamurtaye idam namaha. This is the second part of the verse. So, the first part of the verse is how the vision is created. This is the first part. And the second part is, if this is understood, sakshat kurute. We will go into this word sakshat kurute. It's a very important word. Sakshat kurute. So once it is sakshat karanam happens, then at prabodha samaya means when the knowledge occurs, on waking up, something funny happens when you wake up through the knowledge. Just like something funny happens when you wake up from a dream. When you wake up from a dream, you no longer have any hold of the things from the dream on you. It just disappears, melts away. Something similar is going to happen once we have sakshat karanam. So, yaha sakshat kurute prabodha samaye, what happens? Swatmanam eva advayam. Means there is no duality, the whole world is just swallowed. Is swallowed. There's a funny explanation of this later on in the Manasa Ullasa. He says, just like supposing you have a meal sitting outside. You have dosas and idlis and so on and so forth. And the meal is separate from you. So there are two things involved. One is the hungry person and the other one is the meal sitting in front of you. But once the hunger is satisfied, the meal becomes you. Your hunger is satisfied, but the meal has disappeared. There is nothing left on the plate. And now you do not say the dosa, you say me. I'm happy. If something like this will happen when the whole world is understood in a certain manner, then you swallow it in your understanding. It's no longer a separate entity from you. Your vision is, we are all this, my goodness, I am the only reality. This is unreal. And so this is what is called swatmanam eva advayam. There is no duality. It's all swallowed. Once that happens, and how that happens, I'm amazed how someone is able to show that to me. And my namaskara to that person. Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. So the second part of the verse has to do with how this is done and what happens to me once it is done. And my salutations for this amazing ability that this can be done. And this is all given in the questioning of the verse number 4 through 7. How is it possible? Who can do this to me? Oh, I cannot understand this. This is just impossible. How? These are all the implicit questions in the Manasa Ullasa verses number 4 and 7 that is being presented. So that let us now summarize with an English sentence. Okay, so you should get a good feeling for that and then revise it in your own mind so that when you read the verse, a good approximation of the prose should appear to you. So it says, Vakyartha, sentence meaning, that Paramatma who through the powerful power of Maya, which has the incredible ability to make seemingly impossible possible. So, all these words that I'm using are straight from Swami Maheshananji. So he's added. So the verse doesn't say the Maya definition. It simply says Mayaya. But Swamiji's added that. He thinks that it's an important thing. So I've also taken that English translation. Anyway, that Paramatma, who through the powerful power of Maya, which has the incredible ability to make seemingly impossible possible. In Sanskrit, there's a very famous definition of the impossible possible called Aghatita Ghatanam Patiyasi Maya. Very important one. And so when we study in the Maya in great detail sometime, in the Panchadashi also in the 6th chapter, it just goes into great detail on how the Maya does it and so on. And the end result of that is it makes the impossible seem possible. You'll say, what? How can that be possible? It's possible. It's possible. It's just like, a rope appearing as a snake. And you're so scared of it and all kinds of happens. You say, how could that have happened? I don't know. It just happened. Magic. And so that is we will study that more later on. I'm just giving you the crux of it. So that Paramatma who through the powerful power of Maya, which has the incredible ability to make seemingly impossible possible, like the power of sleep. So the power of sleep is a good sample of Maya. Sample of Maya. We'll study that more later on. Anyway. Okay, so like the power of sleep makes the worldly experiences, including me the experiencer. So this is the two definitions of Vishwam. makes the worldly experiences, including me, the experiencer, which is all inside. There's nothing outside, but it is all inside, but it appears as though it is happening outside. Like a city reflected in a mirror. There is no movement of cars. There are no accidents, nothing, no people or anything in the mirror, but it appears as though it's all there. This is the beauty of the reflection. So so like a city reflected in a mirror. So now you can put a semicolon here. So this refers to the first two lines. Now the last two lines. And while seeing this, Pashyan is a continuous present participle. While seeing, even though as I'm seeing it, upon an understanding of this phenomena, which is like waking up, which directly sees and experiences, sakshat kurute, oneself as being totally devoid of any parts or differences. It is homogeneous. Homogeneous. There's no duality. It is all advayam. To that, Shiva as the original teacher. So Dakshinamurti is Shiva as the first teacher, who necessarily appears before you as a communicator of this knowledge. There's no other way for Dakshinamurti to appear to you as a teacher, except if you go to Brahmaloka, which is absolutely impossible. It's so difficult. You have to have such perfect lives. There Brahmaji himself teaches you. But here you are stuck with Vijay Kapoor. That's it. But hopefully the local teacher's understanding is accurate. He doesn't have any agenda. He just wants to explain the way that he also sees it somewhat. And so who appears as a Vedantic teacher, I hope my prostrations are accepted. Nama idam. Idam namaha means my namaskara to you. May you accept it. So one last time I'll just read the whole thing. That Paramatma, who through the powerful power of Maya, which has the incredible ability to make seemingly impossible possible, like the power of sleep, makes the worldly experiences, including me, the experiencer, which is all inside, appear as though it is happening outside, like a city reflected in a mirror. And while seeing this, upon waking up, by understanding this phenomena, directly sees and experiences oneself as being totally devoid of any parts or differences, homogeneous, to that Shiva as the original teacher, who appears as this Vedantic teacher, may my prostrations be accepted. This is kind of like a prose reading of that. And so for those of you that have the Hindi book, it's a direct translation of that. Jo Paramatma, I'll just say that in Hindi, निद्रा दोष की तरह माया की अघटित घटना शक्ति के द्वारा आत्मा में अपने अंदर ही होने वाले संसार को अपने से बाहर उत्पन्न हुए की तरह शीशे में देखने वाले शहर के समान देखता हुआ जागने पर, ज्ञान होने पर अखंड और भेद रहित ही अपने आप का प्रत्यक्ष अनुभव करता है। उस वेदांत और सन्यासियों के प्रथम आचार्य गुरु रूपधारी श्री दक्षिणामूर्ति भगवान को ये हमारा किया हुआ नमस्कार स्वीकृत हो। This is the Hindi translation. So I hope that I was able to communicate that in English for that matter. Okay. Now that we have seen an overall sense of that, let's go into some portions of it, which is okay, so the first thing is the powerful effect of sleep. Okay, let's just have a few words on that. I'll just give some commentary on each one of them. So the sleep is a very important and a very interesting phenomenon. And one thing you should know, that in our Vedantic teaching, there is very little difference between sleep and death. Very little difference. For all intents and purposes, it is the same. This you should see. How the only difference, the similarities are total. The only difference is that in sleep, when you wake up from a sleep, your equipment is still intact. The equipment for the when the avaranam, when the ignorance that prevents you from seeing yourself as even remembering, forget about seeing, you don't even remember who you were when you were asleep. In fact, you are totally separated from yourself as a waker. Asangaha, you become asangaha. This word is an important one. Asangaha means there's sanga rahitaha. You have no association with yourself as it. This is what the sleep does. Now, when the sleep ends, then this ignorance goes back to expressing itself as a waker in the same equipment, because your equipment is still intact. You still have the same body, the same mind, and same memory, which is important, because in the wake up you can remember how much money you still have in the bank. If you're running short of cash, how much do you have in your checking account or your savings account? All of that is expressed in this body itself. And in death, when you wake up from death, you have to start at a different body. And the different body for the human beings starts with being a baby. This is not true of the dream, because you take up a dream body instantly. You don't have to take a birth through a mother in your dream. And by the way, the same thing happens in other experiences, Swargaloka and Narakaloka. They are more like a dream. You don't go through a birth in Swargaloka. You immediately appear there as someone. But anyway, going back to the similarity and the differences between sleep and death. In death, you also are asangaha. While you are dead, you are asangaha. But you become sasangaha. You take up some sangha, something as a baby. That's the only difference. Otherwise, there is no difference between death and sleep. Sleep it gives you really, sometimes you wonder, what will happen? I wonder what will happen to me when I die. You just found out what you did last night. It's exactly the same thing. Really, I mean, you don't believe me, this is what our Vedanta shows. Absolutely no difference whatsoever. You are totally separated from who you were, but you get rejoined because your karma still have some work to do. Your prarabdha karma still has. There the prarabdha karma is gone. Now you take up some new associations. Otherwise there is no difference at all. But the important thing to see is that really the sleep is a very interesting thing, that really all of your problems and all of your issues and associations are severed, completely severed. And also it creates a new experience for you in the form of a dream, which is an alternate reality. This is what in the Karika says, in Swami Maheshananji's commentary on the Karika, on Mandukya Karika says, that when you are, and we talked about this in the last Saturday's class, that when you are dreaming, you don't say, I am dreaming. It is actually a waking experience for you of a different kind. This is what the Karika is saying, and this is what this is saying. My goodness, this is like a dream. You are so set in your thinking. No, this is not a dream. Hey, I'm going to, please listen to me. No, I'm not listening to you. There's nothing to do with it. This is not believable. And you have your own logic that the dream left after a few minutes, but this is still going on and on. You have your own thing. So there it says that when you're dreaming, you're saying the same thing. The whole thing appears as real to you in the dream as this is appearing to you. There's no difference whatsoever. There are some small differences that goes for a longer time. But really speaking, listen to what the Shastra is saying, that this is magic. This is magic. And the result of seeing the magic, we will come later on. So this is the meaning of Nidraya Iva. Means the amazingly powerful sleep. And of course the sleep is a part of the Maya. Part of the Maya Shakti. And exactly the same. You have to see, you have to have Shraddha that Maya is just frightening the heck out of me, as though this is real. In fact, it is not. And you will begin to see that it is not gradually, as you just believe the power of the Maya. And the description of Maya is so beautiful. So we'll study that sometime. I'll give you one sample. It says, there is a term for Maya called Anirvachaniyam Maya. Anirvachaniyam means it is neither here nor there. It is very difficult to categorize it and say only this way, only that way. The only thing you can say is, I don't know how it does it. So a lot of the people who take a kind of like a scholarly view of different religious thoughts, they dismiss Vedanta, say these guys are Mayavadins. Because anything that they cannot explain, they say it is because of Maya. That's not the way to explain things. They dismiss it. They say the Advaita Vedanta is just, don't even look at it. We say we are not Mayavadins. We are Brahmavadins. We explain Brahma through Maya. So it's not as though we cannot explain what's happening. All we are saying is that this is the power of magic, and if you understand it, you'll be free. So one example of the Maya Shakti is very interesting. So the question is, not the question, but just the one aspect of Maya is, it's a funny thing. It is dependent on the Atma. It is dependent on the Atma. How is it dependent on the Atma? Because it is a jada vastu. It is an inert thing. So an inert thing cannot function by itself. Like a book cannot move by itself. A conscious person has to move this book from here to there. Very clear? So all jada vastus, and Maya is also a jada vastu. There is only one Chaitanyam, which is the Atma. So everything else is jada vastu. So Maya is also a jada vastu. So the jada vastu is dependent on the Chaitanya. It's like a book sitting there. But it is not only dependent on, it is not dependent on the Atma, because it makes the Atma imprisoned in limitation. See, normally you can say that this book is dependent on me. It's like a tail of the dog. Depends on the dog. But it's a funny tale because sometimes it wags the dog. This is a very strange thing. The Atma, which is the Maya, which is dependent on me, makes me dependent on it. And one has to see, this is called anirvachaniyam. Very difficult to categorize fully. But if you see it's working, and you see how it depends on the Atma eventually, then you can be free of it. Anyway, so this is Maya Shakti, that all this will be explained in more detail in the Manasa Ullasa. Then, the Atmani Nijantargatam is pretty simple, that really everything is not simple, but simple to understand, but difficult to appreciate. That really speaking, all the things that I am seeing are my own thoughts. So the outside scene appears on, it falls on my eye, and of course it reverses it, and then the image of the outside things activates the thought patterns of my brain, and so these are already inside me. What I am seeing outside is already inside me, because, as Swami Dayananda used to say, that what you see outside is not exactly what is outside, but how you see it. This is why we make mistakes. If I only see things accurately, I'll never make a mistake. But really, I make the objective, I turn that into subjective. And inside my own brain, and this is exactly what happens. This is in the dream also. So it really is Atmani Nijantargatam. This requires more explanation. We'll study it some other time, but just in a short term, Atmani Nijantargatam. Then comes the important word Vishwam. So Vishwam, what happens is that, and this is given in in great detail in Bhagavad Gita also, in the 13th chapter. Kshetra and Kshetrajnaha. So Kshetra is the outside experience, and the Kshetrajnaha is the experiencer. So the Maya Shakti develops both of them. Both of them. You are looking at the outside experiencer, and you're also aware of yourself as the experiencer. Both of them are mithya. Both of them are outside of you. This we have a problem with, because I can dismiss the outside experiences, but I don't want to touch myself. How can I disappear myself? This is me. Ultimately, for moksha, you have to even give up yourself, because there is something better. There is something better, which is swatmanam eva advayam. So this is the duality, not I wouldn't say the duality, but the dual aspects of the word Vishwam. So Vishwam refers to Vividha Bhutam, outside experiences, and it also means the Jiva. So usually, Swami Dayanandaji also say that. He says, the mistake we make is that, you don't include yourself in the Vishwam. I'm just looking at things outside, and I'm different than that. So it's kind of like you don't face the music. You're not willing to face the music, that anything which is objectified is mithya. And you're really objectifying yourself. You're objectifying certainly your body, you're objectifying. You're also objectifying your mind. And you're also objectifying the I thought. I am doing this. It's an I thought. I went there. Who went there? Oh, I went there. I told you I went there. So going there and me who went there are both outside of me. And until we do that, we cannot get out of this dreamlike experience. So this is a very important thing, that the Vishwam refers to both of them, not just outside things. Okay. Then we already talked about the Darpana Dishyamana Nagari Tulyam, the city seen in the mirror. I think we have discussed it. Now let's go to the second part of the verse. Pashyan prabodha samaye. Then advayam eva swatmanam sakshat kurute. So this sakshat karanam is an important concept to see. So he says, when you see yourself directly, you will be free. How am I going to see myself directly? What do you mean by sakshat karanam? So two words are used. Again, this is just an introduction, and we will look at it in more detail and some other aspects of it. Two words are used. One is called sakshat karanam, and the other one is called your own self. What is the Sanskrit word for it? No, one is the experience away from you, and one is your own self. So pratyaksham, and that word is escaping me for a minute. Aparoksham. Thank you. Aparoksham. So aparoksha karanam and sakshat karanam should need to be understood. Okay? The best example of this is if suppose you are very sick, extremely sick, and in fact, as it happened in the last 2 times very recently, where some very old people were really near death, and they passed away also. And so we all said, how was this woman when she was passing away? How was she aware of it? And how about the doctors and so on and so forth? So this is the normal discussion of the human being when you are near death. And so what happens is, the doctor looks at whether the person is still alive or not through some means. Means you take the pulse and you put a hand on the chest to see if the heart is still beating. So this is called non-sakshat. It is not direct. It is pratyaksha. So you have an evidence, is an evidence-based conclusion. Because supposing a person is dying and everybody is all assembled there, you're not sure whether the person has died or not. It in fact just happened 2 weeks ago. One of my wife's clients' brother-in-law died in East Coast, and I was just talking to my wife. She was talking to my client, or her client today, and apparently this person was breathing, and he had a hard time breathing, and he finally took a last breath, and then his neck came forward like this. That's what my wife was telling me. And so in all these cases, people were really glad that the suffering was over, so it was not a surprise to them. Nevertheless, they were all not sure whether the person has died or not. Swami Maheswaranji gives this funny example. So apparently in the Second World War, there was some atrocity in Philippines or somewhere where people were murdered in a mass scale. And it could happen even in the Nazi Germany and so on, where there are bones and people all in big thing, all in big mass, sorry. And then they were carted off. And then they were buried somewhere. So apparently it happened, there was one man who was amongst this, presumably dead, and he got up and he says, "Hey, I'm alive. Why are you burning me?" So all the people said, "Listen, all the best doctors have already pronounced you dead. Who are you? You are just a villager. How do you know whether you are alive or not? So you are dead. So we're not going to listen to you." And they actually put him into the fire pit. So this is an example of sakshat karana. You listen to this carefully. Sakshat karanam, aparokshat karanam. So here, the pronouncement by a doctor is not sakshat karana. Why not? Because you use symptoms to make a decision. Whereas the fact that you are alive is sakshat karana. Sakshatkara. And aparokshat. Hey, I am alive. I don't need any evidence. Unless I am losing my, I'm already half dead and I'm not even aware of it. As long as I am aware of it, it is Sakshatkara. Swami Dayanand had given this beautiful example. He says, when he first came to this country, the US, and his eyes had never been tested very well, and they all said, Swamiji, you have come to the most advanced country in the world, and here your entire medical examination will be first class. Everything will be well taken care of, including your eyes. Swamiji said, wow, this is so wonderful. I just had these old glasses that I don't know, I cannot see very well anyway. So I'm going to get just beautiful glasses, and all these doctors are going to tell me exactly what to do. So he says he went there to this swank place in Manhattan, very expensive, beautiful furniture and so on and so forth. So this doctor comes in and says, so we're going to find out how your eyes are. So somebody says, oh, very good. What do you want me to do? They said, they open it up and so on. And then they said, read the following lines. So Swamiji said, fourth one is B-A-T, not sure. Okay, can you read this one? Okay, this one says C-L-M, this, that, or the other. So then the person says, okay, now I think I know which one it is. Swamiji says, I thought he was going to tell me how my eyes are. I have to tell him how I read this, which was better. And he says, I'm full of doubts. I think I made a mistake. I think the other line was better. This line was worse. This is called Sakshat. You will yourself know. No one else can tell you how your eyes are and so on. Similarly, when the teaching occurs effectively, you will see the enormity of the Atma directly. That's the only way you will see. Right now, those eyes that allow you to see yourself are blurred. You are not able to see yourself. So therefore, you go into hearsay. In fact, the reading of this verse is a hearsay. You kind of like, somebody says, hey, you are free. And then so you can go home and your spouse can ask, hey, what did you study today? You'll say, the book says that I am free. This is exactly like saying that, the doctor says that I am dead. Sakshatkaranam means when through all of the teaching, you yourself will see directly, oh my God, I can't believe this. And it is not paroksha, it is not paroksha jnanam. Sakshat and aparokshat go together. This is me. If that were to happen, all of the goals of your life are completely fulfilled. This is something only happens in Vedanta. It is not possible anyplace. It's just so amazing. Because in all other cases, you postpone it. People will say, how are you doing? I'm a lot happier, but I still have ways to go, and one of these days, maybe in my next life, and so on and so forth, possibly. This is possible right now. This is the meaning of Sakshatkarana. Not that the book tells you, but you see yourself. It's not like the doctor is telling you, are you alive or not? Are you alive or not is determined by you. If that one happens, while you are seeing the duality, Pashyan, while seeing Prabodha Samaye, wondrous things happens. Then the entire experience can be dismissed as unreal. Very much like waking up from a dream. So this is the second part of the, and the person that makes me see this is none other than Ishvara. And to that Dakshinamurti, I cannot thank enough. This is not an ordinary thanks. It's not just saying thank you. My whole life is now fulfilled. And so that is the stuti, that is the praise. And as I mentioned in the last class, the stuti combines both the knowledge, because the knowledge means that it is now, you become free. You have found that you are already a Sangha, but now you know you are a Sangha. And so this is the first verse of the Dakshinamurti Stotram. And so what we will do in the next few classes is just take some of these in a bit more detail. I won't go into all the verses of it, but we will see some of the verses. But the main thing I wanted to do was to explain the verse itself in some detail, so that you get a good sense of what it is saying. And then how that is true will be given more color, more substance through some of the other verses, which I'll summarize. So I don't know, I would probably say that in the next, maybe in next 2 classes, maybe at the most 3, we will finish verse number 1. And then go on to the next verse. So like that, if I can devote 3 to 4 verses, 3 to 4 days for each of the verses, then I would have fulfilled the promise that the whole course will be over in about 40 days, 40 classes. So that's how it is. Okay, so now let us chant the last 5 together. And we will always do that together. So number 6 to number 10. Rahu grasta divankarendu sadrisho maya samachadinad sammadra karanopasamharnato yo bhut sushuptaf puman pragasvapsamiti prabodha samaye yaf pratyabhigyayate Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namayadam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Balyadishu Pijakradadishu Tatha Sarvasvavasthasvapi Vyavrittasvanuvartamanamiti Adyantam Spurantam Sada Swatmanam prakatikaroti bhajatam Yom Traya Bhadraya Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namayadam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Vishvam Pashyati Karya Karanataya Swaswami Sambandhataha Shishyacharyataya Tathaiva Pitraputratyatmana Bhedataha Swapne Jagrativaya Esha Purusho Maya Paribhramitaha Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namayadam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Bhurambhamsya nalo nilo ambar maharnartho himamshu puman ityabhati characharatmakamidam yasyaiva murtyashtakam nanyat kinchana vidyate vimrishatam Yasmat parasmat vibhoः Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Sarvatmattvamiti Sputi Kritamidam Yasmadamushmin Stave Tenasya Shravanat Tadattamanana Dhyanat Cha Sankirtanat Sarvatvamitvamaha Vibhuti Sahitam Syadishwaratvam Swataha Siddhyet Punarashtada Parinatam Jaishwaryam Avyatam Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah Hari Om. Questions from today's class?
That first verse, I was expecting it mentioned that Swatmana means I myself am that. That Dakshinamurti. Isn't that didn't quite come out in the explanation?
Yeah, perhaps, yeah, you're right. No, it may not have come out. Swatmanam eva advayam means, so there's ultimately there's only one Atma. So the one, so in that manner, the Yaha, which was the Paramatma, and the Swatmanam, which is Jivatma, is Advayam. Yeah, that's a good point. That should have been brought out more. Yeah. So I think the way we would probably leave it is that if you are interested, you can supplement the basic course with the reading of the detailed notes from Sureshacharya's Manasa Ullasa, or you can just keep it to the level of detail that we have in the class. So it's up to you how much time you have and so on. But you may want to review some of them. So this way, I think we have the best of the both worlds. We will do it somewhat rapidly, but also allow you to go into more depth in your own time. So I think that will be good to do. All right, so we will see you next week.